Hey everyone, What If Fan here. Bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name down in the description. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. Quick reminder, part 17 will be the final installment of the What If Overpowered Ichigo Left Karakura Town series, at least for now. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's dive right in. Chapter 11, I Want Darkrai. This is how it should be, Dylan. Your dad will always be your strongest support. Whatever Pokemon you want, just ask, and your dad will get it for you. Really? Of course. Do you know who your dad is? I hold 54% of Sylph Company shares. Do you understand what that means, my son? You're born with a silver spoon. You're standing on the shoulders of giants. The mature, weathered middle-aged man on the video call was spitting as he spoke. I want a Darkrai. Dylan expressionlessly interrupted his dad, Ito, in the middle of his passionate speech, stating his request. Ito choked up immediately. Darkrai, commonly known as the Nightmare Pokemon, is a mythical Pokemon from the Sinnoh region, often referred to by fans as a secondary legendary. Dylan, you just turned 18. You shouldn't aim too high. Didn't I just give you a gumi? Ito coughed awkwardly. Do you believe what you're saying? Dylan glanced sidelong at his dad. I can't get that. Choose something else. Ito waved his hand grandly. Darkrai is a mythical Pokemon with an elusive presence. Even as the major shareholder of Sylph Company, Ito couldn't get one, nor could the president of the Pokemon League. Dylan couldn't help but smile. That's his dad, alright. Then, how about a Kubfu? Kubfu is the pre-evolution of the legendary Pokemon Urshifu. Dylan believed he was giving his dad a break here. Though both Urshifu and Darkrai are legendary Pokemon, mythical Pokemon are also considered legendary. Kubfu was relatively easier to obtain. Master Mustard, who owns Kubfu, is retired but still alive. With Mustard's consent, getting a Kubfu was possible. Compared to other legendary Pokemon, Urshifu was one of the easier ones to find, given that some people know about Mustard's residence on the Isle of Armor. Hello? Hello, Dylan, the signal is really bad. I can't hear you at all. Your mom wants me to go shopping with her. I gotta go. Dylan watched as the video call ended and looked at the 4 minimized Pokeballs in his hand, feeling quite speechless. The previous Dylan was similarly gentle and mature but was inherently proud and didn't like using the resources provided by his father. But Dylan was different. Although still proud, he wouldn't refuse readily available resources. In fact, Dylan would use them wisely. This was his advantage, so why not use it? Come out. Dylan threw the 4 Pokeballs. 4 beams of light flashed, and 4 small Pokemon appeared before Dylan. Dylan quickly scanned them. On the far left was a black lizard-like Pokemon with patterns resembling slow-flowing lava and a head covered by a black hood. This was Salandit. Beep Salandit, Poison/Fire type, toxic lizard Pokemon. Ability, Corrosion. Moves, Sweet Scent, Toxic, Ember, Smog, Poison Gas, Scratch, Fake Out, Egg Move. Description: it releases toxic gas by burning its body fluids. It attacks the dazed enemies inhaling the gas. Dylan nodded in satisfaction after checking the Pokédex. The corrosion ability was just what he needed, and it had inherited Fake Out, which was great. Next, Dylan looked at the 2 floating Pokemon resembling plants. Their bodies were light purple, and their faces looked like blooming blue flowers with golden eyes in the center, giving a spooky appearance. These were Glimmet. Deep Glimmet, Rock/Poison type, or Pokemon. Ability, Corrosion. Moves, Stealth Rock, Rock Polish, Ancient Power, Acid Spray, Knock Off, Rock Throw, Explosion, Egg Move. Description: it absorbs nutrients from cave walls, and the petals on its body are made of toxic crystals. Dylan checked the other Glimmet, which had a similar profile but inherited the move Toxic and had the corrosion ability instead of Poison Touch. This old man is quite considerate. Dylan chuckled. His dad had thoughtfully prepared two Glimmet with different abilities. Glimmet was a rare Pokemon in the Paldea region, and getting these two must have taken some effort. Finally, Dylan looked at the last Pokemon, which surprised him the most. This was a Pokemon resembling a scorpion, with a body in blue and purple stripes, a pincer at the end of its tail, and white hooks on its forelimbs, looking quite fierce. This was Skorupi. Deep Skorupi, Poison/Bug type, Scorpion Pokemon. Ability, Sniper. Moves: Venoshock, Bug Bite, Toxic Spikes, Bite, Poison Fang, Pin Missile, Hone Claws, Night/Egg Move. Description: it grips prey with its tail's pincers and injects venom. It never lets go until the poison takes effect. What a pleasant surprise. Dylan smiled. His dad must have known he was aiming for a poison-type team, so he prepared this Skorupi. Dylan was quite happy. Skorupi's evolution, Drapion, is very strong. With proper training, it could be a mainstay in his poison-type team. He still remembered the battle between Paul and Ash in the Sinnoh League. Although Paul's ace was Electivire, the MVP of that battle was Drapion. Its flexible pincers and strong combat power left a deep impression, like a war god. The team is almost formed. I'll capture a few Ghastly in Lavender Town when I have time, Dylan thought. His poison-type team members were almost set. When he had the chance, he would go to Lavender Town to catch a Ghastly or Haunter to serve as a mainstay. Jengar's combat power is also excellent and could be part of his future Ghost-type team. Hello, I'm Dylan, your trainer. From now on, we're partners. Dylan squatted down slightly, speaking softly to the four Pokemon. With his innate ability to bond with Pokemon, Dylan was always able to connect with them easily. Salandit tilted its head, the two Glimmet's eyes sparkled, and Skorupi stared intently at Dylan. Though their reactions varied, it was clear that none of them resisted Dylan. Let's get stronger together. Dylan petted the four Pokemon before heading to the backyard. Unless going out or having a gym battle, he generally didn't keep his Pokemon in their balls. His backyard was spacious enough for his Pokemon to roam freely. After spending time with his Pokemon until night, preparing food and Pokeblocks for them, Dylan returned to his room. After a shower, he lay on his bed. Meow. Sprigatito immediately pounced on him, cuddling on his chest and yawning cutely. Sleepy? Go to sleep then. Dylan scratched the little cat's chin. Sprigatito meowed softly again before curling up next to Dylan's pillow to sleep. System, enter growth mode. Dylan called out to his cheat in his mind. Activated. Dylan felt a slight disorientation before realizing he was in a bright, spacious area. When growth mode is activated, the host's body enters a deep sleep state. Please don't worry. The light screen that only Dylan could see appeared again. Dylan nodded and looked at the 9 screens in front of him, each showing a map-like image. Upon closer inspection, Dylan's expression turned odd. Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, Alola, Galar, Paldea. These were the maps of the 9 regions. The host can choose one of these regions for the first growth session. Feels like playing a game. Dylan couldn't help but mutter before choosing Kanto, as he was currently in the Kanto region. Pokemon. Activate. Chapter 12, Challenger. When Dylan came to his senses again, he found himself outdoors, not far from a grassy field with lush green grass and several verdant trees along the roadside. Is this the full immersion experience mode? Dylan clenched his fists, feeling the power and texture of his tightened grip clearly. This was the growth mode the system mentioned, transporting Dylan into a virtual world and then naturally, it was about leveling up by battling wild Pokemon. Dylan's gaze fixed on a small light purple rat not far away, with prominent buck teeth. This was a normal-type Rattata. Dylan took out his Pokédex and aimed it at the Rattata. Beep Rattata, normal-type, mouse Pokemon. Gender, male. Level, 5. Description: it has 2 big front teeth and gnaws on anything in its path. If you see one Rattata, it's certain that there are more than 40 nearby. Unlike in reality, in this world, you can't check the abilities and moves of a Pokemon, or perhaps it's because he hadn't captured it yet? Dylan pondered, realizing that although he couldn't directly view abilities and moves, he could see gender and level. The most important thing was the level. Earlier, the system had explained that in this pseudogame, growth simulation, world, the strength of Pokemon would be data-driven, similar to game levels. Moreover, experience points could be earned through battles to level up. The levels his Pokemon gained in this world would directly reflect in the real world. What did this mean? It meant that Dylan had a huge advantage. As long as he kept leveling up in this growth simulation world, his strength would soar. Map. Wow, it's just like the game map. I'm in Viridian City now. Dylan opened the map and confirmed his location. The map was identical to the first-generation version of Red/Green that he played in his previous life. Would there be any storyline events? This was basically a game world. System, can I bring the Pokemon I capture in this growth simulation world back to the real world? Dylan suddenly thought of something and asked the system. If this was truly a game world, what about the legendary Pokemon in the game? For example, in the Kanto region, Zapdos at the power plant, Articuno at Seafoam Islands, Moltres at Victory Road, and Mutwo in Cerulean Cave. You can, but special conditions are required. Explain. When you challenge and defeat the Elite Four and champion of this region, you can choose one Pokemon from your champion team to bring back to the real world. Troublesome. Dylan couldn't help but feel this was troublesome, though he understood the system's reasoning. Can I reselect my region now? Dylan felt a bit regretful. Why did he choose Kanto? Compared to other generations, the first generation's Kanto region wasn't particularly special. After you clear the Kanto region, you can unlock the next region. I see. As expected, he couldn't reselect. But it wasn't a big deal, he just needed to clear Indigo Plateau. Sprigatito at level 14, Gumi at level 10, Mariani at level 26, Glimmet at level 21, another Glimmet at level 20, and Skorupi at level 21. Dylan checked his 6 Pokemon, which he had chosen when entering this world. He wasn't surprised that Mariani had the highest level since it was indeed his strongest Pokemon currently. But why was Sprigatito asleep? Oh right, Sprigatito was indeed sleeping in reality, so the Pokemon's physical form entered this world? Dylan pondered for a moment, noting this. After familiarizing himself with various functions, Dylan headed forward. He was currently north of Viridian City, and continuing upward would lead to the famous Viridian Forest. Wait, this isn't entirely a game, walking takes quite some time. Dylan noted this, although he didn't feel tired, it still took him over 10 minutes to reach the entrance of Viridian Forest. Moreover, the weather is nice today. Are you also here in Viridian Forest to find Pokemon? Noticing Dylan approaching, a girl in a school uniform miniskirt jogged over, her big eyes sparkling as she spoke brightly. Let's have a battle. Then the miniskirt girl took out her Pokeball and moved to a position opposite Dylan. Dylan. This sudden battle challenge left Dylan momentarily speechless. The miniskirt trainer Yuko challenges you. Oh, it's a miniskirt trainer, then that's okay. So, this is the rule in the game where eye contact means a battle is inevitable? Dylan took out Gumi's Pokeball. Miniskirt trainer threw her Pokeball first, and a Pidgey appeared, flapping its wings. Pidgey. Level 4. A level 4 Pidgey, Dylan felt a bit helpless. Gumi landed in front of Dylan, looking at the miniskirt trainer and Pidgey, seemingly a bit confused. It turned back to glance at Dylan. Wasn't it just about to sleep on the grass? How did it suddenly get here? However, Gumi soon cast those thoughts aside and stared intently at Pidgey, full of fighting spirit. This was the first time Dylan used it in battle. And then, that was it. A level 10 Gumi against a level 4 Pidgey had no suspense. Wow, you're really strong. After losing, the miniskirt trainer girl slumped her shoulders, looking at Dylan with a dejected expression. Thank you. Dylan smiled politely. Your Gumi defeated Pidgey, gaining 47 experience points. Your Gumi leveled up to 11. Dylan raised his eyebrows at the system notification. This leveling up through battles was indeed satisfying. There should be many wild trainers in Viridian Forest. Beat them all, then head to Pewter City to challenge Brock's gym. Perfect. As for wild Pokemon, their experience points were too low. Dylan had Gumi defeat a wild Rattata just now, but it only gave a bit over 20 experience points. Trainer battles clearly offered more experience. But even small gains add up. However, to progress quickly, the wild Pokemon here were too low level for effective grinding. Time passed as Dylan rampaged through Viridian Forest, turning into a relentless experience grinding machine. Even passing Caterpie had to endure Gumi's Dragon Breath before moving on. The result was that Gumi leveled up to 15. 4 hours later, Dylan finally emerged from Viridian Forest, looking at Gumi's Pokeball with a twitching smile. The leveling speed wasn't that fast, but Dylan understood. The wild Pokemon in Viridian Forest were just too low level. It also took quite a while, but Dylan had no choice. This wasn't just a game. Viridian Forest was pretty large, and the miniskirt trainers, youngsters, and bug catchers were scattered throughout. The battles weren't turn-based like in games, but required real-time commands, just like real-world battles. So, do they really have intelligence? But it doesn't seem quite right. Dylan looked back at Viridian Forest, recalling the vivid expressions and behaviors of the wild trainers. They didn't seem like pre-programmed AI at all. Chapter 13, You Have Arrived, Challenger. Pewter City, a stone town extending to the foot of a massive rocky mountain, gets its name from the sturdy, gray-black color reminiscent of solid rock. Dylan had arrived in this stone city. Indeed, this is the in-game version of Pewter City, not like the real one at all, Dylan muttered to himself as he entered the city and looked around. Though he had just stepped in and couldn't see the deeper parts of the city, he was already sure that this place differed from the real Pewter City. From his memory, he had visited Pewter City before since Rhoda Town was not far from it. Dylan was born in Viridian Forest and later moved to Rhoda Street, so this simulated world was indeed created by the system, mimicking the Pokemon game. Dylan's eyes caught sight of a bulletin board nearby. Pewter City Bulletin Board. Pokemon Gym, Pewter Gym. Gym Leader, Brock. Description, a man as strong as rock. Dylan couldn't help but chuckle at the bulletin. Being highlighted on the city's bulletin board was quite something. He thought about asking Eileen to make one for Rhoda Street, so all visitors would know about the Rhoda Gym. Perfect. Using the map, Dylan made his way to the Pewter Gym, easily recognizable by its rock-like roof. As he walked inside, he noticed the interior was also rock-themed, with large stones neatly placed around. At the deepest part of the gym stood a bronze-skinned young man with arms crossed, resting with his eyes closed. This was Brock, the gym leader of Pewter Gym. As Dylan approached, a camper boy in green clothes rushed over to challenge him, providing some easy experience points with his level 7 Geodude. Dylan gladly accepted. You have arrived, Challenger, Brock said as Dylan reached him, his tone serious and voice steady. Brock, in the game, was a very professional and respected Pokemon trainer. I am Brock, the gym leader of Pewter City. I have the tenacity of solid rock, and so do my Pokemon. Hard as stone and unyielding. Yes, I use rock-type Pokemon. Minor attacks do nothing to them. Brock's voice was deep and solemn, his presence intimidating. Dylan listened intently, making mental notes. This was a professional gym leader speaking. For self-introductions, it's important to highlight your and your Pokemon's characteristics. It raises your credibility, Dylan thought. He always put a lot of thought into his battle introductions, like when he faced Gary before, but he felt it needed more polish. Knowing you will lose, yet still challenging me? That's the spirit of a Pokemon trainer. Come on, then. Brock said, stepping back and smiling confidently. Impressive as Brock's presence was, it wasn't enough to challenge Dylan. Breaking through defense with a strong attack exceeded my expectations, Brock said, looking shocked after the battle. No, you're just too weak. A level 11 Geodude and a level 12 Onix? Seriously? Dylan kept these thoughts to himself, maintaining a neutral expression. This boulder badge proves your victory. Take it, Brock said, handing Dylan the gray, rock-like badge. Thank you, it was a great match, Dylan replied politely, despite the battle being a clear sweep. I also have a gift for you. Take this rock slide TM, Brock said, handing over a TM. Truly, there are many strong trainers out there. I must work harder to become a great trainer. Brock said, his face determined and his voice filled with resolve. Dylan held his tongue. The in-game Brock was quite inspiring, but the real Brock. Recalling the anime version of Brock, Dylan's expression turned strange as he left. Outside the gym, Dylan released Sprigatito from its Pokeball. Meow. Sprigatito stretched and then began to glow white. Yes, during the gym battle, Dylan had used Sprigatito, which had reached level 17. It was ready to evolve. The white glow grew brighter as Sprigatito's form changed rapidly. Soon, the light dissipated, revealing a light green cat standing on two legs, curiously examining its new body. Unlike the cute Sprigatito, Florigato looked more fierce and cool. Deep Florigato, Grass-type, Grass Cat Pokemon. Gender, female. Level, 17. Ability, Overgrow. Moves, Quick Attack, Magical Leaf, Hone Claws, Bite, Leafage, Sucker Punch, Egg Move. Description: skillfully controls the vines hidden under its long fur and strikes enemies with hardened flower buds. Nice, it's evolved. Meow. Dylan bent down to pat Florigato's head, feeling proud. Sprigatito was his first Pokemon to evolve. Florigato purred contentedly, lifting its head proudly. Let's move on, Dylan said, walking with Florigato by his side towards the east of Pewter City. Next, they needed to pass through Route 3 and Mount Moon to reach Cerulean City and challenge Misty. There were many trainers on Route 3, and Dylan defeated them all, gaining more experience. By the time they reached Mount Moon, Florigato was level 19, and Gummy was level 18. However, as Dylan prepared to enter Mount Moon, the system prompt appeared. Simulation time has ended. Please exit. Already? Dylan was surprised but didn't resist and chose to exit, /. His vision went black, and when he opened his eyes again, he saw his familiar ceiling. Back already. Dylan rubbed his temples, feeling fine. He noticed the sunlight coming through the window. Meow. A low meow came from beside him. Turning his head, he saw Florigato standing there. It really did bring the growth from the simulation back to reality. Dylan couldn't hide his grin. This was like having a cheat. Are you hungry? Let me freshen up, and we'll get breakfast, Dylan said, noting it was not even 8 a.m. Meow. Florigato's eyes turned into happy crescents. Chapter 14, New Challenger. Dylan prepared food and Pokeblocks for Sprigatito and all his other Pokemon, then sat down to eat breakfast himself. Today's weather was great, with the morning sunlight shining down warmly. Dylan took out his phone and browsed the Kanto League's official website, navigating to the list of gyms and clicking on Rota Gym. A very challenging gym leader Dylan's skills are quite impressive. Next time, I, the young master, will definitely win. Reading this new comment posted last night, Dylan couldn't help but smile. It was obviously from Gary, the style was unmistakable. However, the comment had garnered a couple of skeptical responses. Really? Are you a shill hired by Rota Gym? Laughable. Someone couldn't beat this trashy gym? What's your level? Did you challenge it with a Magikarp? Reply, get lost. If you don't believe me, leave your info and we'll have a match. I, Gary Oak, never lie on this. Clearly, Gary wasn't one to take insults lightly. Even in the original series, Gary had a similar attitude. When he first started, he was quite arrogant, always feeling superior. His early defeat in the Indigo League, where he was eliminated quickly, humbled him significantly. Gary's loss at the Indigo League led to a notable change in his personality when he reached the Johto region. Though he remained proud deep down, this was evident especially in his interactions with Ash. Internet tough guys are everywhere. After Gary's strong response, those two skeptics didn't reply further. Dylan chuckled softly. In this world, technology is advanced, and social networking is no exception. Everyone has their share of detractors, like Raihan from Hammerlock Gym in the Galar region. Raihan is a champion-level trainer. With the previous Galar champions Mustard and Peony having retired or resigned, Raihan is the only one in the Galar region, aside from current champion Leon, capable of defeating him. It can be said that Raihan is the second strongest in the Galar region. Raihan is outgoing and often posts selfies on social media, but he still has plenty of haters. Why? Because he has never beaten Leon. Raihan's league card states he's lost to Leon 10 times in a row. Each loss brings a barrage of mocking comments online. This is the reality of the internet now. Online critics don't care that Raihan is Galar's strongest gym leader or that he's the one who's taken down the most of Leon's Pokemon in battle. All they know is that Raihan is a complete failure against Leon because he's never won. But is this a reason to mock Raihan? Raihan is a champion-level trainer, without a doubt. There are maybe a dozen champion-level trainers across all 9 regions. But even so, Raihan gets ridiculed online. So, it's no surprise that online trolls are everywhere. I wonder if there will be challengers today. Dylan, feeling a bit bored, browsed through the latest reviews of other gyms, muttering to himself. And Gary said he'd challenge me again. When will that be? Dylan thought about Gary. As the first real challenger, Dylan had a deep impression of him. Yes, next time Gary comes for a challenge, Dylan would welcome him warmly. And it'd be great if Ash could come too. Dylan thought of Ash. Before he crossed over, the Pokemon anime had reached the Horizon series. In Journeys, Ash won the World Coronation Series, defeating Leon and becoming the new world champion. But even after becoming the strongest, Ash still felt he hadn't achieved his dream of becoming a Pokemon master, so his journey continued. Only, this time, there was Noah accompanying him on his new journey. Dylan had watched Horizons and felt that while Journeys had a good ending, its production was subpar. Despite Ash winning the championship, it didn't change that fact. But Horizons was well made, and the new protagonist Liko was quite endearing. He was getting sidetracked. The important thing now was whether Ash would challenge his gym. If we follow the storyline, Ash should challenge the Battle Frontier after his Hoenn travels, and that's when he'd come to Rhoda Street. Dylan recalled the storyline. According to it, if Ash followed his 1-year per region adventure timeline, he might come to Rhoda Street in 3 years. Because Rhoda appears in the movie Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. Maybe I should go out and explore. Dylan thought. Now that he was here, the storyline might change subtly. Moreover, Dylan genuinely wanted to meet Ash. Although he was a gym leader, he could still travel. As a gym leader, he had responsibilities, but gym leaders are people too, and they need breaks, right? Dylan. Suddenly, a melodious voice called out. Dylan turned around and saw Eileen approaching in a white dress. Even the loose dress couldn't hide her alluring curves. Her delicate, gentle face had light makeup, and her golden wavy hair flowed freely. She was stunning. Eileen, you're here early today? Dylan greeted her with a smile. My guest visited the castle yesterday, so I didn't come to the gym. Eileen explained why she hadn't been at the gym the day before. So I came early today. But I just heard from the receptionist that you defeated a challenger yesterday? And it was Professor Oak's grandson. Eileen's bright eyes sparkled with joy as she asked Dylan. She was genuinely happy that Dylan finally wasn't giving away badges. Yes, Mariani performed really well. That's great, your hard work these past few days paid off. But it's a shame I wasn't there to see it. Eileen was sincerely happy for Dylan but also a bit regretful. This was Dylan's first victory against a challenger. And she missed it. It's okay, there will be more opportunities. Dylan smiled slightly. Giving away badges? No more. From now on, challengers would only get badges if they earned his approval. Eileen's beautiful face blossomed into a radiant smile, her eyes curving delightfully. Hey? Did Sprigatito evolve? Suddenly, Eileen noticed the Florigato nearby eating its food. Yes, it's been working hard too. Dylan nodded, just about to say more when his phone buzzed. The receptionist messaged him, "There's another challenger at the gym." Chapter 15, Poison vs. Poison. Where is the challenger? Dylan and Eileen entered the gym but found no challenger inside. And they haven't come in yet. They said they were getting ready. The receptionist's clear face looked a bit strange as she glanced toward the gym's entrance. Question mark. Dylan followed her gaze. He saw that the wide-open gym door suddenly had a red carpet rolling in. Pink petals slowly scattered, and a girl with long lavender hair, dressed in a kimono, gracefully lowered her head and walked in step by step. Beside the kimono-clad girl was another girl holding a flower basket, scattering petals with each handful. The receptionist and Eileen were stunned. Is there really a normal person who would make an entrance like this? Dylan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Please, take care of me. My name is Jeanette from Crimson City. The pretty girl named Jeanette finally reached Dylan and the others, offering a polite bow with a gentle and pleasant voice. No need for formalities. I'm Dylan, the gym leader of the Rota Gym. Dylan smiled as he returned the greeting. Shall we begin? Please. The two walked into the battlefield. The receptionist was about to head to the stands to watch the battle when she suddenly noticed the sound of hurried footsteps. Turning her head, she was speechless. A large group of cheerleaders burst in through the door, carrying small flags and drums. The receptionist was once again stunned. Jeanette! Go, Jeanette! The cheerleaders took their place in the stands, enthusiastically cheering for Jeanette with their drums and flags. Wow! Today's challenger is even more over the top than that young master from yesterday. The receptionist's mouth dropped open, not knowing how to react. That young master yesterday only had a small group of cheerleaders, but today's girl, her cheerleaders numbered in the dozens. And they're so well equipped? They even brought big drums? These challengers are getting more bizarre each day. Eileen was equally dumbfounded. On the field, Dylan glanced at the cheerleaders and couldn't help but chuckle. It seems Jeanette is quite charming, with so many people liking her. Dylan looked at Jeanette with a gentle smile, teasing her. I'm sorry if I've caused you any inconvenience. Jeanette's lips curved slightly as she maintained her elegant demeanor. To be fair, at least on the surface, Jeanette appeared to be a very polite and graceful girl. Not at all. As long as the challenger is sincere, the Rota Gym will never turn them away, Dylan replied with a light smile. His handsome face and gentle tone were equally comforting. Jeanette blinked, forming a good impression of this gentle-natured gym leader. Rota Gym wasn't the first gym she had challenged. In previous gyms, the leaders would outwardly say they didn't mind the loud cheering of her fans, but their eyes always betrayed a hint of annoyance. However, this gym leader, who was around her age, genuinely didn't seem bothered. He must have a great temperament, he must be a kind person. We will now begin the gym battle for the Rota badge. The challenger is Jeanette from Crimson City. The battle will be 2v2. Gym leader Dylan will go first. The match ends when one side's two Pokemon are unable to continue. The other side will be declared the winner. Begin! The referee announced the rules and then stepped out of the battlefield. Jeanette, let me introduce myself properly. Dylan adjusted his collar, flashing a bright smile. His magnetic voice resonated as he spoke. I am Dylan, the gym leader of this Rota Gym. My specialty is the poison type, which is what you'll be facing. Have you ever faced poison-type Pokemon? Their power may not be immediately apparent, but they will give you a unique battle experience and a sense of fear. Please experience it for yourself, my poison-type Pokemon. Dylan smiled, his left hand in his pocket, while his right hand toyed with the pokeball in his hand, exuding a cool and confident demeanor. Although the boy's smile remained bright and gentle, his aura had completely changed. The calm confidence he exuded was captivating. The gym leader is so handsome. The receptionist was excited as she watched the composed Dylan. Today's Dylan seems different, Eileen remarked, her eyes gleaming with admiration. She had never seen Dylan so carefree and unrestrained before. Are you ready, Jeanette? Faced with the gym leader's final question, Jeanette's eyes slowly lit up. Although she was surprised that such a sunny-looking boy specialized in poison types, she couldn't deny that she was impressed by the gym leader's charm at that moment. So handsome. Please. Jeanette extended her hand with respect. I appreciate challengers like you, Jeanette. So then, Dylan flipped the pokeball in his hand. Limit. Ready for battle. A flash of white light passed by, and a plaid-like Glimmet quietly floated in front of Dylan. Huh? Is this a new Pokemon? The receptionist was surprised to see this unfamiliar Pokemon. Yes, it's the one Uncle sent Dylan yesterday, Eileen nodded and explained. She had just seen Glimmet in the backyard, otherwise, she would have been just as surprised. Glimmet? Jeanette looked at Glimmet in confusion, as she didn't recognize the Pokemon. Glimmet is a Pokemon from the Paldea region, a rock and poison type. Dylan thoughtfully introduced Glimmet to Jeanette, as it was understandable she wouldn't know how to read new Pokemon. I see. Thank you, Gym Leader. I may be inexperienced, Jeanette said, feeling a bit embarrassed as she brushed her hair back, her cheeks flushing. It's a bit awkward to have the opponent introduce their own Pokemon during a battle, even if the opponent is a gym leader, Jeanette thought, blushing. Don't worry about it. Please, Jeanette. Dylan made a gesture, inviting her to start. Jeanette composed herself, then seriously tossed out her first Pokeball. Go, Nidorina. The Pokeball opened, revealing a light blue Nidorina standing before Jeanette. Resembling a mix of a porcupine and a rabbit, with red eyes and deep blue patches on its light blue body, this was the evolved form of Nidorina. Deep Nidorina, Poison type, Poison Pin Pokemon. Ability, Poison Point. Moves, Superpower, Cut, Toxic Spikes, Fury Swipes, Poison Sting, Scratch, Skull Bash. Description, when relaxed in its den, it will retract its spines. This indicates that it is at ease. A Nidorina. The receptionist became worried, as Nidorina was a poison type. I'm sorry, Gym Leader Dylan, but I have a poison-type Pokemon too. Seemingly confident in her victory, Jeanette's lips curled into a playful smile as she spoke to Dylan with a girlish charm. Quite different from her initial reserved demeanor, this was her true personality. I will get that badge. Specializing in poison types? Sorry, but everyone knows poison-type Pokemon can't be poisoned. Oh? Dylan raised an eyebrow, looking at the kimono-clad girl with a half-smile. Chapter 16, Requesting for Clarification. This gym is actually a poison-type gym, which caught Jeanette by surprise. However, she remembered that her fan club members had mentioned something to her earlier. This Rota gym has a poor reputation online and is considered a very weak gym. Now, Jeanette seemed to understand why. Perhaps it's because this gym specializes in poison-type Pokemon? Poison-type Pokemon are considered non-mainstream not only because they tend to look strange and aren't popular, but also because their strength is generally average. Although getting poisoned can be troublesome, it's actually not difficult to prevent, as both poison-type and steel-type Pokemon are immune to being poisoned. Steel types are completely immune to poison-type attacks, and poison-type Pokemon can't be poisoned. Steel-type Pokemon aren't exactly rare either, with many trainers favoring them. As a result, poison-type Pokemon have a tough time. You can go first, Challenger. Dylan smiled at Jeanette, not bothering to argue. The results would speak for themselves. Seeing Dylan's composed demeanor, Jeanette tilted her head in slight confusion. But she quickly refocused, getting that badge was her priority. Winning is the flower. Losing means withering away. Jeanette softly whispered to herself. This was her creed. Despite her cute and elegant appearance, she was a fiercely competitive girl. Nidorina, getting close. Jeanette's clear and melodious voice was decisive. In truth, if it weren't to counter poison types, she wouldn't be using Nidorina. Nidorina's evolution, Nidoqueen, is a poison/ground type Pokemon, but Nidorina itself isn't. Furthermore, Nidorina only knows normal type and poison type moves, while Glimmet has a rock type. Normal type moves are not very effective against rock types. But that's okay. Jeanette trusted for Nidorina to handle the battle. Nidorina charged swiftly at Glimmet, looking fierce, but to Dylan, it seemed futile. Nidorina couldn't fly, while Glimmet could float. Even though Glimmet wasn't very fast, it could easily dodge Nidorina. Full of openings. Dylan calmly remarked. Question mark. Jeanette heard the comment and was momentarily stunned. But since this is a gym battle, Dylan didn't instruct Glimmet to dodge. Use ancient power. Glimmet's eyes glowed, and several rocks materialized around it. A rock-type ancient power attack. The rocks hurtled towards Nidorina, and Nidorina didn't have any resistance to ancient power. Nidorina, use Scratch to break them. Jeanette quickly commanded. Nidorina stood on its hind legs, its claws glowing white as it slashed at the incoming rocks. Smash! 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 The power of Scratch was strong, and Nidorina shattered all the rocks sent by ancient power. Great! Nidorina, jump up and keep using Scratch. Jeanette was thrilled. Nidorina had learned Scratch from a senior trainer's Nidoking during her travels. It was a powerful normal-type move, and ever since Nidorina learned it, its combat ability had greatly increased. Nidorina growled softly, took a few steps forward, and then leaped at Glimmet. Glimmet was floating at a low enough height that Nidorina could reach it with a jump. Nidorina's claws glowed white as it slashed down heavily at Glimmet. Toxic. Dylan's smile remained unchanged. But Dylan's command left Jeanette stunned, as well as her cheering fans in the audience. Huh? Using Toxic on Nidorina? Doesn't this gym leader know the type matchups? Poison-type Pokemon can't be poisoned, right? He really is handsome, but his skills... Something feels off. The cheerleaders whispered among themselves. Although they cheered loudly for Jeanette, they were quiet during the battle, as Jeanette had instructed them to be. Unless something extraordinary happened, they were to stay as calm as possible and not disrupt Jeanette's concentration. In the arena, Nidorina's Scratch hit Glimmet, but at the same time, a pool of dark purple toxic liquid shot from Glimmet, striking Nidorina and seeping into its body. Boom! Even though Scratch wasn't very effective against Glimmet, the move still had considerable power, pushing Glimmet back before it stabilized itself. Nidorina landed safely on the ground. Dylan, poison-type Pokemon can't be poisoned, you. Jeanette looked at Dylan, confused. She didn't believe that Dylan didn't know this. A poison-type specialist not knowing that poison-type Pokemon are immune to being poisoned? That's absurd. But before she could finish, she noticed Dylan gesturing toward Nidorina, indicating that she should see for herself. Jeanette furrowed her brows and looked at Nidorina. And at that moment, Nidorina, who had been staring down Glimmet, suddenly started glowing with an eerie purple light, and toxic blotches appeared on its body. Nidorina's expression immediately turned pained as the first wave of severe poisoning took effect. How is this possible? Jeanette's eyes widened in shock, her expression extremely cute in her surprise. How could this be? Her poison-type Nidorina was really poisoned? The cheerleaders in the audience were equally stunned into silence. Jeanette, Pokemon are mysterious creatures. Even as a gym leader, I can't claim to know everything about them. Type matchups, moves, abilities, habits, species traits, there are just too many variables. Pokemon are just that mysterious. So yes, it's entirely possible for a poison-type Pokemon to be poisoned. Dylan's gentle voice reached the bewildered Jeanette's ears. Please, Dylan, help me understand. Jeanette bit her lip, seriously asking for clarification. She knew there had to be a reason. It was a widely accepted belief that poison types couldn't be poisoned, but Nidorina clearly was. You're unfamiliar with it, right? Glimmet belongs to a species that has a special ability called corrosion. This ability is only found in the Glimmet line in Paldea and the Salandit line in Alola. And as you've just seen, corrosion allows its user to poison even poison and steel-type Pokemon. Dylan's tone was calm, like a patient teacher explaining a lesson to a student. Jeanette was silent, her face slightly flushed. She had been so confident in using Nidorina against Dylan, but now it seemed her actions might have appeared foolish in Dylan's eyes from the start. The corrosion ability lets its user poison even poison and steel-type Pokemon, Dylan said with a smile. To Dylan, Glimmera and Salazzle were essential for any competent poison-type specialist. While poison-type Pokemon don't rely entirely on poison in battle, a poison-type team without poison isn't truly a poison-type team. But the natural counters to poison types are quite clear, primarily steel-type and poison-type Pokemon. That's why the corrosion ability is so necessary. I see. Jeanette's bright eyes sparkled with realization. Not only poison types, but even steel types could be poisoned? Chapter 17, Forfeited. Understanding the reason for Nidorina's poisoning did provide some new knowledge for Jeanette, but the battle had to continue. But how to proceed? With Nidorina poisoned severely, for Jeanette, the battle with Nidorina was like racing against death. The severity of poison is no joke. But could Nidorina defeat Glimmet in this state? Jeanette found it very difficult. Even though the battle hadn't been long, Jeanette felt. Are people online insane? Is this gym handing out badges like this? The deepest impression Jeanette had of Dylan was undoubtedly his consistently gentle and courteous demeanor and his calm and collected temperament. Such a person, no matter how you look at it, is not someone simple, and the battle was indeed like that. Nidorina, with its four limbs moving, leaped high to use its powerful move on Glimmet again. Venoshock. But Glimmet easily dodged Nidorina's attack, and a deep purple poison liquid condensed and hit Nidorina's face. Nidorina cried out in pain, its whole body was sent flying and fell heavily to the ground. Poison type's Venoshock. Nidorina, being a poison type, was resistant to Venoshock, but the attack's damage was doubled when hitting a poison target, making it still quite effective against Nidorina. Jeanette was somewhat anxious, and at that moment, an eerie and terrifying deep purple poison light shone from Nidorina, who was still on the ground. The disturbing poison spots spread again over Nidorina's body, causing it to curl up and cry out in pain. The second wave of severe poison erosion. Nidorina. Sweat began to bead on Jeanette's fair forehead due to her anxiety and heartache, but she felt utterly helpless at this moment. No matter how she thought about it, this situation was beyond her. She was anxious, but she didn't know what to do. It was an excruciating feeling. Dylan looked at Jeanette, whose face had turned pale, with a hint of amusement in his eyes. This is the charm of poison-type Pokemon, seeing the opponent's bewildered and helpless reaction after being poisoned is quite interesting. Tisk, Dylan is as disgusting as ever. Who are you calling disgusting? The gym leader is using tactics. Hey! The receptionist turned around with an annoyed expression but froze when she saw who had spoken. What are you doing here? The receptionist looked at the handsome hedgehog-haired boy in a black t-shirt and jeans with curiosity. She remembered clearly that this was the same little young master, Gary, who had challenged the gym yesterday. This gym is a semi-public place. What's wrong with me coming to observe and learn how the gym battles are conducted? Gary shrugged, his casual and nonchalant demeanor still exuding a sense of arrogance. No matter how much you learn, you definitely can't win against the gym leader. Although she didn't have much liking for this seemingly superior young master, he was still a guest, and... well, the receptionist had also seen the comments on the gym's official website. Although not very likable, this young master had indeed given the gym a good review. The receptionist pursed her lips, choosing not to engage further with Gary, and instead looked at the battle arena. Gary didn't care, either. After his defeat yesterday, he had pondered for a while, and he was indeed very curious about this gym. So he came to observe today, entering at the start of the battle without anyone noticing him. Corrosion ability. Gary leaned against the railing, deep in thought as he observed Glimmet. In fact, he was a very intelligent genius, especially when it came to thinking. However, he usually preferred to act superior and rarely used his brain. If that's the case, even Steel-type Pokemon won't work. Steel-type Electric-type Magnemite could theoretically defeat the Glimmet, but this Glimmet with the corrosion ability couldn't be handled that easily. Moreover, Dylan had made it clear that all Glimmet had the corrosion ability, indicating that even after evolution, they would still possess this trait. What to do? Gary was contemplating team composition. His humiliating defeat yesterday was the first time he had lost so badly. Although he understood that the strength level of that Mariani was not higher than that of Wartortle and Cublin, he still lost without any suspense. So Gary had decided that he, the indomitable Gary, must obtain the badge from the Rota Gym. On the field, Miss Jeanette. Jeanette, whose thoughts were in turmoil, looked at Dylan, who had spoken. To be an excellent trainer, maintaining calm during battles is the most basic requirement. Dylan spoke gently, and it was obvious to everyone that Jeanette was very anxious. But it was understandable since the situation was indeed too unfavorable for Jeanette. Jeanette was stunned by these words, then realized that Dylan was giving her advice. "Sorry, I've embarrassed myself," Jeanette said with genuine regret. "No need to apologize. Not everyone is born as an excellent trainer. Everyone must go through a process of growth. And our gym is here precisely to test challengers like you, Miss Jeanette." Dylan shook his head. Jeanette looked at Dylan with a somewhat dazed expression. Could such understanding really come from someone of her age? I can understand that Miss Jeanette is anxious about such a situation, but trainers also have an obligation to be responsible for their Pokemon. Analyzing the battle situation and making the best choices is an essential quality of a trainer. Dylan subtly reminded Jeanette. "I understand." Jeanette wasn't foolish. She knew that Dylan was reminding her of something. "Come back, Nidorina." Jeanette withdrew Nidorina. Indeed, no matter how she thought about it, Nidorina was no longer suitable for battling Glimmet. A reasonable Pokemon switch was necessary, but Jeanette looked at the floating Glimmet and was puzzled about which Pokemon to use against it. None of the Pokemon in her possession seemed particularly suitable. In fact, she had a rather special Bellsprout, which was her secret weapon and often proved effective. But it was useless. Glimmet floated, and Bellsprout couldn't even get close. What Pokemon should she use? Jeanette was very conflicted. First-time challengers often come unprepared. If Miss Jeanette has not found a way to defeat me now, you can come back for another challenge. Dylan, seeing the situation, naturally gave Jeanette an out. Don't feel bad. Gym challenges are not official tournaments, and there is always an opportunity to try again. After all, our gym is here to hone challengers like you. Hesitant, Jeanette finally made up her mind after hearing these words. "Yes, I am currently unable to pass your test. Gym leader Dylan, I will forfeit this challenge." Jeanette bowed slightly to Dylan, her first genuine gratitude and admiration for a gym leader. Wise choice. Dylan smiled lightly. Challenger Jeanette forfeits. The battle is won by gym leader Dylan. The referee announced the result of the battle. Jeanette's cheerleaders were all quite disappointed, but on the other side, yay, gym leader Dylan is amazing, another win. The receptionist was very excited. Dylan Eileen was also very happy, her beautiful eyes shining with brilliance. "Thank you very much, gym leader Dylan. I have learned a lot." Jeanette wasn't particularly upset about the defeat. Her emotions had stabilized and she even felt a bit sentimental. "Don't mention it. I'm also happy that challengers can learn and gain insight during the challenge." Dylan was very modest. Jeanette's big eyes sparkled. "This gym leader is handsome, has a good temper, and is excellent in skills. How can he be so outstanding?" Gym leader Dylan, actually, I'm also very interested in poison-type Pokemon. Could you please teach me? Jeanette hesitated and looked at Dylan with anticipation. She wasn't speaking nonsense. She did have many poison-type Pokemon in her team, though she never thought of using them in battle. Most of the time, she used other types of moves. Teaching is too much, but I do have some insights into poison types and can discuss them with Miss Jeanette. Dylan didn't refuse, his voice smooth and gentle, entirely unassuming of a poison-type user. Thank you so much, Jeanette said with gratitude and a polite bow. Seeing this, Gary fell into contemplation again. He wasn't surprised by Jeanette's defeat. After all, the Rota Gym had a poison type, and it wasn't easy to win against it. But the key point was that Jeanette's treatment seemed completely different from his own yesterday. Why was Dylan so friendly and supportive towards this woman? Why so much comforting and advice? Why the difference? Well, just because she's a challenger, does that mean I'm not? Why such different treatment? Gary was very displeased. Chapter 18, Giving Insights. Gary left in a huff, clearly displeased. As the grandson of Professor Oak, he had grown up with a silver spoon in his mouth. Although he had always been overshadowed by his older brother's prodigious talent, his grandfather, sister, and brother had all looked out for him, which had led to his somewhat spoiled demeanor. But now, Dylan's dual attitude left him very annoyed. Yesterday, when he battled, Dylan hadn't been so considerate, had he? Why the special treatment for this woman? Whether it was strength or anything else, if anyone deserves special treatment, it should be him. He had come first, after all. Clearly, he had to conquer the Rota Gym. Before leaving, Gary glanced at Jeanette, scoffing at her as if to say, such a weak trainer. Just you wait, Rota Gym badge, I'll definitely get it before you. Of course, Dylan was unaware of Gary's irritation. He hadn't even noticed Gary's visit. As for why he showed special attention to Jeanette today, it wasn't because she was a pretty girl, but because Jeanette was polite and respectful towards him as the gym leader. Naturally, Dylan didn't mind returning the courtesy. He was simply the kind of person who believed respect should be mutual. The Rota Gym was quite large. After the battle ended, Jeanette didn't leave immediately, as she had expressed a desire to learn more about poison-type Pokemon from Dylan. Miss Jeanette, may I see your main team? Dylan asked before they entered the lounge. He wanted to review her lineup first to give better advice. Sure, Jeanette nodded and released her 6 Pokemon. Bloom, Beedrill, Scyther, Nidorina, Slowbro, and Spinarak. Dylan looked at her team and fell silent. Jeanette wasn't lying, her team was indeed focused on poison types. Aside from Scyther and Slowbro, the other 4 Pokemon were poison types. However, the overall strength of this team was quite average, with limited potential for development. Is there a problem, Gym Leader Dylan? Jeanette asked cautiously. No, not really. There's no major issue. Let's go inside and discuss. Please take care of these friends. Dylan gestured towards the guest room and asked the receptionist to look after Jeanette's fans. Sure thing, Gym Leader. The receptionist cheerfully asked the referee to help and fetched bottles of drinks and sodas from the corner self-service cabinet, which were specially prepared for challengers. Jeanette's fans were pleasantly surprised by this treatment, as it was their first time experiencing such hospitality at a gym. Despite their disappointment at Jeanette's recent defeat, their admiration for the Rota Gym and its charming gym leader only grew. Eileen approached from the observation seats to join Dylan in the lounge. Tea or soda? Dylan asked, holding up a bottle of soda. Thank you, Gym Leader Dylan. I prefer tea, Jeanette responded graciously. No need to be so formal. We're not that far apart in age, Dylan chuckled. Is the Rota Gym inherited? Jeanette asked with curiosity as she accepted her tea. The Rota Gym wasn't very well known, and its location was somewhat obscure. Online reviews about the gym weren't great. But upon visiting, it was no exaggeration to say that it was the most luxurious gym Jeanette had ever seen, with incredibly opulent decor. Clearly, Dylan's family must be quite wealthy. Yes, my father established this gym. However, he and my mother are currently on their honeymoon, so they left the gym to me, Dylan explained with a hint of helplessness. I see. But I believe with your abilities, gym leader Dylan, you can definitely take the road to gym to greater heights, Jeanette said earnestly, for respect for both the gym and its leader Evelyn. Thank you for your kind words. Right now, I'm trying to improve the gym's reputation, Dylan said with a smile of appreciation. Jeanette blinked thoughtfully. The Rota Gym's online reputation wasn't great, indeed. Miss Jeanette, what are your thoughts on poison types? Dylan asked as they shifted to the main topic. Poison types? I'm not very knowledgeable. Is it about defeating opponents with poison? Jeanette replied after pondering for a moment. She had only recently started her journey as a trainer. Although her team had many poison types, it was more of a coincidence. She hadn't actively sought to specialize in poison types and knew very little about them. That's partially correct, but not very specific, Dylan shook his head. In the current trend among trainers, poison types are considered somewhat niche. Trainers typically capture Pokemon for two main reasons. Dylan sipped his tea and spoke in detail while Jeanette listened attentively. First is affinity. The bond between a Pokemon and a trainer is often serendipitous. This is part of the adventure, encountering Pokemon in a romantic sense. If a trainer is drawn to a Pokemon, pursuing and capturing it feels natural. However, poison types, due to their peculiar appearance, lack appeal compared to other types. Many poison types are considered unattractive or strange. Jeanette thought about this. It was true that she was not one to judge Pokemon by their appearance, but most people might find it hard to appreciate the more unusual-looking poison types. The second reason is strength. Although I'm reluctant to admit it, many trainers pursue powerful Pokemon to become stronger, and poison types tend to have lower overall strength compared to other types. Dylan was clear that while there were legendary poison types, ordinary poison types were relatively weaker. Pokemon battles revolve around the strength of the Pokemon and the trainer's command. Choosing a Pokemon with lower strength as a main team member is less ideal. But poison types aren't weak. With proper strategy, poison can make opponents suffer greatly, Dylan said with a slight smile. Miss Jeanette, you're right. The measure of a skilled poison-type trainer is not just in making opponents poison, but in how effectively they use poison. Focusing solely on poisoning can disrupt your battle rhythm. But no matter how strong an opponent is, if they're poisoned, they become vulnerable and weakened. What do you think? Dylan looked at Jeanette, speaking clearly and deliberately. Jeanette recalled her own night arena, who was poisoned severely, and the intense feeling of anxiety and helplessness it brought. If she managed to inflict severe poison on her opponents, wouldn't they feel the same way? Her eyes sparkled with excitement at the thought of such a powerful strategy. Please, Gym Leader Dylan, teach me. I want to learn. Let's talk about your team. I have a few ideas, and you can consider them, Dylan suggested. Please speak freely, Gym Leader Dylan. Jeanette listened intently, eager to learn. Eileen looked at Dylan with curiosity. Was he really going to turn this elegant, gentle girl into a poison-type expert? Chapter 19, Discussion. In the reception room, the scent of sea-tide incense gently wafted through the air, creating a relaxing and very comfortable atmosphere. This was a type of a tribute item, but Dylan was currently using it as a regular incense, and it was quite pleasant. There are no weak Pokemon, only weak trainers. This statement isn't entirely wrong, but it depends on the specific circumstances. Dylan lightly tapped the tea table rhythmically with his fingers, speaking to Jeanette in a rather indirect manner. Just as there are geniuses and mediocrities among humans, Pokemon also have differences in their racial strength. This is a gap in racial bloodlines, but it isn't absolutely definitive. It's like the difference between Beedrill and Dragonite, there's a huge disparity in innate racial strengths. However, even Beedrill, with wholehearted training, can become a mainstay Pokemon. Moreover, Beedrill can Mega Evolve, turning into a quite formidable burst-type attacker. For example, in the special edition, the boss of Team Rocket, Giovanni, had Beedrill as his ace, which was no weaker than Lance's Dragonite. But how many people have truly trained Beedrill to such an extraordinary level? How much effort and resources did Giovanni invest in Beedrill to make it so strong? Outsiders don't know. Dylan wasn't trying to sound harsh. If Giovanni had invested the effort and energy he put into training Beedrill into a Tyranitar, how terrifying would that Tyranitar be? Perhaps Giovanni's Beedrill was indeed special, but Dylan believed that it was the result of Giovanni's extensive, albeit unspoken, training. To become a strong trainer, a competent team requires careful planning and construction. If you specialize in a particular type, it becomes even more crucial. Dylan continued, explaining that a team specializing in a single type is very different from a multi-type team. If you want to cultivate an invincible team, there are many aspects to consider. For example, coverage. If you specialize in one type, it's hard to ensure comprehensive coverage, which makes it easier to be targeted. Just like a psychic type specialist, if you deliberately build a dark type team to battle them, they might be quite frustrating. While real Pokemon moves aren't limited to just 4, specializing in psychic types naturally means becoming more proficient in psychic type moves, while dark types can be immune to psychic type attacks. The difficulty of battling becomes evident, and it's a natural disadvantage. The same goes for poison types. Although there are Pokemon like Limit with the corrosive ability and Salandit with the corrosive ability, if the opponent's entire team consists of poison and steel type Pokemon, and Limit and Salandit are defeated, it can be quite troublesome. This is the advantage of a multi-type trainer, as they can include Pokemon of various types in their team, ensuring they have coverage and can adapt to different opponents' lineups. Miss Jeanette, your current lineup seems a bit too immature, and if you're genuinely interested in poison types, my advice is to add a few core Pokemon to your team. Dylan thought for a moment before speaking. Please, Gym Leader Dylan, go ahead, Jeanette said, nodding. She didn't mind Dylan directly pointing out the ordinary nature of her lineup. After all, she hadn't considered the compatibility of her main Pokemon or aimed to specialize in a particular type. She had just naturally caught and trained Pokemon. First, your team lacks real offensive power and an ace. I actually recommend you visit Lavender Town or inquire about where you might find Ghastly line Pokemon. Ghastly. Gengar, you mean? Jeanette blinked. Ghastly's final evolution is Gengar. Yes, Gengar is an excellent ghost/poison type Pokemon, and it can be cultivated as an ace. Even if it's not the ace, it can become a key member of your team. Dylan nodded. The excellence of Gengar didn't need much elaboration, and Dylan was well aware that Gengar could also Mega Evolve or Gigantamax. Even as a team ace, it would be more than sufficient. Of course, this is just my suggestion. Everyone has their own training approach. Miss Jeanette, you can also adjust your team gradually on your own. However, your current lineup is somewhat mediocre. To truly become stronger, you need to put in more effort. Dylan had tried to be as tactful as possible. I understand this, Gym Leader Dylan. If you have any other suggestions, please feel free to share. I will accept them humbly. Jeanette had completely placed herself in the role of a student, being a determined girl who wanted to become stronger. Regarding the issue of her team's shortcomings, it wasn't a big deal to her. There aren't many excellent poison-type Pokemon in Kanto. If possible, Miss Jeanette, you might also want to capture Zubat with its Infiltrator ability and Oddish with its Runaway ability. Oddish's final evolution, Vileplume, with the Chlorophyll ability, can be quite troublesome for opponents if used well, even if it doesn't have the Corrosive ability. Dylan suggested capturing Zubat and Oddish. I'll remember that, Jeanette said, taking Dylan's advice to heart with gratitude. If you have time, I strongly recommend that you visit Alola or Paldea. If you have friends there, you could also ask them for help. I particularly recommend the Corrosive ability Pokemon, Salandit, and the Poison Point ability Pokemon, Rosalia. Even without the Corrosive ability, Rosalia with the Poison Point ability is a vital member of a Poison-type team. Dylan smiled as he added his recommendations, genuinely guiding Jeanette. The job of a gym leader is to train challengers. Thank you very much. I'm truly grateful, the kimono-clad girl expressed her thanks once again to Dylan. If you have time, feel free to come to the gym for a match, and if you have any questions, you can contact me. We can discuss them together. Thank you. Jeanette proactively exchanged contact information with Dylan and prepared to take her leave. She felt she had gained a lot from today's gym challenge and wanted to return and organize her thoughts. I'm very grateful for your guidance today. I'll visit again. At the gym's entrance, Jeanette bowed deeply to Dylan in thanks. You're welcome. Remember to leave a good review for the gym, Dylan said with a warm smile. I will, Jeanette said, covering her mouth with a light smile, seemingly thinking of the online reviews of the Rota gym. Take care. Dylan and Eileen watched as Jeanette and her cheerleaders walked away. It feels like you could really develop her into your apprentice, Eileen teased Dylan. Such detailed guidance was indeed rare. And Eileen meant apprentice in the literal sense. Many gym leaders took on apprentices, sharing their experience and guiding them in Pokemon training. These apprentices were, in a way, the gym leader's students. She's already a formally embarking trainer. Dylan replied with a smile. Typically, gym apprentices are young trainers who haven't yet formally started their journey, much like the young front desk staff. Though the front desk staff seemed uninterested in becoming a trainer, otherwise, she could have been Dylan's first apprentice. Trainers can also be apprentices, Eileen said with a hint of a smile. It doesn't matter. The gym doesn't lack staff. Dylan wasn't concerned about apprentices. Usually, gym leaders recruit apprentices not only to train newcomers but also to have them assist in the gym. Dylan's gym didn't lack staff. Take it slow. Dylan stretched lazily, speaking with a relaxed tone. The gym would get better and better, and Dylan firmly believed in this. Moreover, Dylan was starting to enjoy being a gym leader, facing challengers, guiding them, and receiving their respect and gratitude was quite interesting. Chapter 20, Is that Pokemon even legit? Rota Gym. On her way to the Pokemon Center, Jeanette recalled everything that had happened at the Rota Gym earlier, and her lips involuntarily curled into a slight smile. She suddenly felt that the Pokemon League wasn't lying, the gym facilities really did challenge trainers, and challengers could genuinely grow from their experiences at the gym. But then she thought of the previous gym, the Celadon Gym, and her smile faltered a bit. Yes, indeed, there are gyms that are just going through the motions. Only a gym leader like Dylan, who is responsible, competent, and kind, truly deserves to be called a real gym leader. Jeanette, are you feeling happy? One of the cheerleaders asked curiously, given that Jeanette had just lost her challenge at the gym. Huh? Am I? Jeanette paused, surprised. Her mood was indeed good, but was it that obvious? Are you thinking about Dylan, the gym leader? No, please don't say such blunt things. Jeanette's cheeks reddened slightly, and she couldn't help but retort. Yes. The cheerleader blinked. But I didn't expect the Rota Gym to be like this. At first, I thought this gym was quite unimpressive. Yeah, I didn't expect that either. That handsome gym leader even gave us sodas. How thoughtful. And his skills are so strong that Jeanette had to give up on the challenge. People online really like to spread nonsense. Clearly, gym leader Dylan is so excellent, yet they still spread rumors. It's too much. They must be jealous of Dylan. He's good-looking, strong, and judging by the gym, it's probably a wealthy family, so they intentionally slander Rota Gym. The cheerleaders chatted among themselves, decisively labeling those who left negative reviews as haters. Although, isn't this assumption of deliberate slander a bit far-fetched? Jeanette listened in silence, but considering Dylan's level, it seemed unlikely that even powerful challengers would rate it so poorly. Jeanette didn't quite understand. Were those negative reviews online really the result of intentional slander? A gem will always shine. Gym leader Dylan will surely shine brightly in the future. Jeanette shook her head. She was very confident and firmly believed that Dylan would become one of the best gym leaders in the Kanto region, which was inevitable. Salandit and Blimit. Jeanette remembered Dylan's suggestions and felt a bit troubled. She didn't have any friends in other regions, and it would be difficult to ask someone to help her capture Pokemon from other regions. But she couldn't personally travel to Alola and Paldea, could she? Not to mention that even if she went, finding those Pokemon in a short time might not be easy. Maybe I should ask the elders in town. Jeanette bit her lip, deciding to seek advice from the elders in her town. She wanted to become stronger. And she also believed that a poison-type team had great potential. Regarding talent, Jeanette thought her own talent was quite good. As long as she had a direction, she believed she could achieve something. A trainer who doubts themselves, how can they become stronger and reach the pinnacle? Moreover, Jeanette felt a special affinity with poison-type Pokemon. She had naturally captured several poison types, which she considered to be a sign of fate. Gym leader Dylan, I won't let your guidance go to waste. Jeanette's fair and delicate face showed determination. She felt she had grasped Dylan's vision for poison types. Thus, a young girl in a kimono determined to specialize in poison types set out on her journey. In the backyard of the Rota Gym, Dylan was making training plans for his main Pokemon, including Gumi, although he could use growth simulation in the evening. But proper training was also necessary, such as improving move proficiency, reaction training, and so on. Hey! Dylan, when did you capture a Clefairy? Huh? Dylan turned, puzzled, to see Eileen walking over, holding a Clefairy with a surprised expression. The Clefairy in Eileen's arms was looking at Dylan with curious, watery eyes. Clefairy? Is this little one lost? Dylan didn't think too much about it and walked over to gently rub the little Pokemon's ears. It was very cute. Clefairy is a fairy-type Pokemon, and its appearance is a standard adorable one. It's all fluffy and star-shaped, looking quite charming. Clefairy is also a rare Pokemon, especially loved by girls. But Dylan clearly remembered that there was no Clefairy in his backyard. He hadn't encountered one while training at Mount Moon either, so he hadn't captured one. However, Dylan didn't dwell on the sudden appearance of this Clefairy. His backyard is very large. So, occasionally, wild Pokemon might wander in and stay. For example, there's that Slowpoke. That Slowpoke appeared from somewhere and would just sit by the lake, sometimes staying in the same spot all day without changing its posture. So, even though he didn't know where this Clefairy came from, Dylan didn't think too much of it. After all, Rota isn't very far from Mount Moon. And Mount Moon is a well-known wild area where Clefairy resides. Clefairy didn't shy away from Dylan's touch, continuing to look at him with its pure, shiny eyes. Let's keep it here for now. Clefairy is very cute. Eileen was quite happy, as she liked Clefairy a lot. Yeah, that's fine. Dylan nodded with a smile and then took out a poke block. Little one, if you've accidentally wandered away from your family, stay here for now. We'll make sure you're well-fed and well cared for. Dylan bent down slightly, offering the poke block to Clefairy, his voice gentle. The essence of vitality overflowed. Clefairy blinked, tilting its head as it looked at Dylan, still very curious. But then Clefairy opened its mouth and bit into the poke block in Dylan's hand. It seemed to find it unexpectedly tasty, and Clefairy's eyes brightened up. Meow! A clear and pleasant sound came from Clefairy, its big eyes squinting into crescent shapes. Eileen looked at Clefairy with even more affection. But Dylan was momentarily stunned. Is Clefairy's cry really meow? Dylan looked at the cute Clefairy with some confusion. Was it just that he hadn't seen enough Pokemon? Clefairy's cry was meow? Dylan's eyes narrowed slightly. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed off. Dylan pulled out his Pokédex and aimed it at Clefairy. No matter the Pokemon, the Pokédex would reveal its true nature. When he saw Clefairy's Pokédex entry, Dylan's expression was one of utter bewilderment. Deep Clefairy, Fairy-type Pokemon. Ability, Synchronize. Moves, Transform, Psychic, Aura Sphere, Play Rough, Trick, Explosion, Water Cannon, Leaf Storm, Earthquake, White Guard. Description: due to its highly adorable appearance, Clefairy is very popular as a pet, but it's not easy to find. Pokédex, can you explain why Clefairy's ability is Synchronize? And look at the number of moves, over 200 moves listed. It's practically overflowing the Pokédex. Is this Clefairy for real? Is it even legal? That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder, part 17 will be the final installment of the What If Overpowered Ichigo left Karakura Town series, at least for now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.